Welcome to the Drupal Usability meeting for Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. I'm Benji Fisher, and also on the meeting are Christina Chumillas. I'm pronouncing that like an American, aren't I? It's probably Chumillas.
Yes, but don't worry, that's okay.
Okay. Christina Chumillas or Sakrina. We have Ofer Shal and Ted Bowman. Ofer, am I acceptably pronouncing your name?
Yes.
Okay. Ted is going to present to us the issue 3041885, display relevant PSA data for Drupal. Ted, would you like to take over the screen share, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, I can do it. All right. Share screen. Okay, desktop 1. And let me get rid of Slack and get rid of my notifications. Oh, it's already off. Interesting. Okay, so this is the issue. So basically, the Auto Updates initiative made a contributed module a couple years ago that does updates, but also has this functionality of displaying highly critical public security announcements. And these are announcements that may come like once a year, once every couple of years. These are not for like, there's a security announcement for Drupal core. There wouldn't be an announcement for each one of these. These are just ones that are highly critical and that the security team expects there to be security exploits in the wild, very shortly, with like maybe a day or a week after the security fix is released, so that any any site that's not currently patched would see exploits being attempted on them very soon. So I think this is the sort of first security message we have in Drupal core, besides like your available security updates. And so I guess the named Drupalgeddon and Drupalgeddon 2, these kind of things are the kind of things that would be announced within Drupal core. There is a feed for this that Drupal.org has made, and it basically right now, if you went to it, it'd be empty, and it would almost always be empty. But within a week of the announcer, basically, I think the idea usually was within a week of these critical updates, there would be an announcement on Drupal.org, which there is now. But then after this patch, that announcement or a link to that announcement would show up in your Drupal site on admin pages. Yeah, so the basic reasoning behind this is maybe not everybody follows Drupal.org so closely, or maybe they miss the emails, or maybe they're not signed up for the emails, but we want to make sure as many sites as possible get patched as quickly as possible for these critical updates. So I will show some of the screen shares. So on the admin report page, we're going to have an error if something is, if we find an announcement, and it'll say, 1, urgent announcement requires your attention, or 2, and then it'll list to the title. And this title is not, this is the test title. This yeah, can people hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just me.
Yes.
Okay. So Drupal 7 and 8
in the thing and not realizing the meeting actually started. So could you?
Hello? I'm not sure if Jess is hearing me.
Someone muted me. Sorry, Ted. I was messaging you in Slack, not realizing the meeting had started. Did you see my question? Or sorry, have you just started? Yes, I can hear you too, Ted. But
okay.
Can you just answer my question? Have you just started?
Yeah, we've started.
Okay. Did you? So I don't reload the page because I moved the screenshots to the UI changes section. I'll
Okay.
let you go ahead and continue, but there's a couple of things that are missing. So go ahead.
Okay. So this title here, Drupal 7 and 8 release on May 8th, 2019. This would be a title that would come from the feed. So this is not wording that Drupal core would be in charge of. The stuff in red here, the public service announcements and one urgent announcement requires your attention, would be stuff that would be wording that Drupal core is responsible for. And then on right now on all admin pages besides the status report itself, we would also have an error message here showing public servants announcements, and then again a title, a link that shows the title that comes from Drupal.org, and there'll be a link to the issue on Drupal.org. I didn't get a chance to do the email screenshots, but right now, let me see here. This is the email, and I'll paste it in a blog post on Slack for now. Snippet. So this is the email that would come. So this first line is the subject. And then this is the text. The security update will be made available soon for your Drupal site. To ensure the security of your site, you should prepare the site immediately and apply the update once it is released. So right now, the wording comes straight from the contrib module. We haven't changed it. I guess that's the point of why we're going here to the meeting for advice on that. And then it lists the security announcements, and I guess this is done on HTML format. I'm not sure. It comes has all the links down here to the actual announcements. Trying to think what else. I think that is about. There was something else you said I missed, Jess.
Yeah, so the two things. So previously you had the messages, you had a message on the status report saying that there are no messages. I was wondering if you already removed that from the patch or if you've kept it in, because if it's kept in, we should look at it.
I would have to check on that. Yeah, I guess that would be a question for the group right now. Do we want if there is no public service? I think I removed it. So the functionality right now would be that if there are no announcements, no element would show up like this in your status report. So it wouldn't say like public service announcements, no messages. It would just, this heading would not show up in your status report at all. And I guess the idea is that this would be a lot of noise for the 99% of the time that no announcement would be made. So questions so far?
And then the other question is there any configuration anymore?
There is not, but I do want to show the configuration form because I think we do want to make changes to the form, the existing form, because we're reusing. So in an earlier version of the patch, there was a section for public service announcements, but it was a bit confusing because, well, I thought it was a bit confusing because basically you had the emails here, which is an existing setting. And then there was a checkbox to say, did you want to also send the PSA announcements to the same email? A couple problems I thought with having the setting is that if you unchecked it so that the emails would not go out for public services, public security announcements or
PSA's public service announcement.
Public service announcements. If you unchecked it, then you really wouldn't notice any functionality miss until like the very rare case that there is one. So it would be an easy setting to turn off accidentally and never realize you're not getting the settings. And then maybe you only find out like a week after there's one of these critical releases because everybody you know is updating their site and has mentioned it and you never got an email. And the other setting was to show, to turn off showing the warnings on the admin pages. So basically any admin page, you could turn off completely on all admin pages these announcements. And we don't have that now for security updates. If there's a security update or updates available, they'll show on admin pages and you don't have the ability to undo that setting. So we thought because these are much, much rarer that we shouldn't give you the ability to not show them. Again, because you wouldn't, like the effect of that setting is something that would only affect your site every couple of years. So it'd be easy to turn it off and not remember you had turned it off. And also these are more critical potentially than sort of more regular security updates. So if we don't let you not show that you have available security updates, we probably don't want you we probably don't want to give you the ability to turn off showing that in a week there'll be a really highly critical security update. But if we don't have any settings on this form, then we might want to change the wording, say here. So, because it just talks about your site checks for available updates and it'll notify this list of emails. So we might want to say something about PSAs here. Thoughts?
I think that the phrase available updates is vague enough that it could be construed as including public service announcements.
Okay.
But what I think might be worth doing is under the radio buttons, after only security updates, add something like and critical PSAs. I would not want to say just PSAs because people might not recognize what that means in this context. So I would add the word critical, even though those in the know would think of it as redundant.
Only security updates and critical security announcements, so that the user actually knows exactly what it means that way.
That works for me.
Only security updates and what was that, Jess?
Critical security announcement.
All right, I have that as a note to change.
And then I guess it's worth just looking over the text on the page to make sure that there's nothing else that seems incorrect. Yep.
Oh, looking at this page, the frequency of the checks, daily or weekly.
Yeah, so right now we're actually have our own like 12-hour setting that we check. I don't think we should follow this because if they say weekly and the PSA is only out for a week and your weekly check say comes right before the PSA is put out.
You'll probably miss it.
Yeah, you'll miss it. Yep.
And I think it's okay for that because since they're at most 48 hours lead time. So it's not like it's exactly on a schedule. So yeah, that makes sense to me too, to use the separate time without letting the user change it.
Yeah, so basically there's no settings for this new. There's no user-facing settings for this new change. Besides the wording here that we'd be changing.
And the email addresses to notify.
No, this is existing. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it affects
But
it.
we'll use it, yeah. Yeah. Let me think of other. Trying to think of other questions. Do you have any other questions, Jess, that you think?
Yeah, so just one second while I look at my own review. I had questions related to the UI sort of peppered in there. I just want to make sure I
Oh,
cover
yeah.
all of them.
Let me search the page for UX too, because I remember we had some. Let's review UX.
So one,
Oh.
one thing that I'm talking about something else related to it. One thing that we want to be careful of is we obviously don't want to give the user an overload of 2 messages, especially if the messages are in any circumstance inactionable, right? So it's important to be able to balance giving them the information with not giving them it too frequently, so that it gets to the point where they just glaze over and don't even look at it. And this has been a problem for us with updates in general. One concern about the PSA message, and could you let's see, could you go back to the screenshot, Ted?
Yep.
Is that when you're in this situation, you've got this big red box at the top of your screen. There's, a 75 to 80% chance that the announcement says something like, a new release to fix a highly critical issue is coming out on Wednesday. Be prepared for that Wednesday update. But it doesn't mean the release is available yet. And so part of the goal in making the message persistent is that we can make sure it continues to show until that release is available. But then the problem becomes, we don't have a mechanism on Drupal.org yet to indicate that what release solved the problem. So for example, right now, let's say I'm on a secure version of Drupal and the update manager knows that I'm on a secure version of Drupal because it's in the metadata. This PSA here says that on May 8th, there will be a Drupal 7 and 8 critical release, but it's today's May 7th. Then there's 2 possibilities on May 8th. On May 8th, either I pay attention to this and I go and download the update right away, or I don't, and then my site is insecure. But even if I do download the update, right now we don't have a way to say, okay, your site's secure now. The new secure version that you're on addressed the thing that was in this PSA and turn it off. Which I think, I'm a little bit concerned about, if they're in a situation where they don't do the update. Obviously the situation the site is still insecure, and it's actually been replaced with a situation where, there is an actionable step the user can take, which is do the security update. But if they still haven't done that, it would be good to fake a screenshot, I think, in which you see both messages, see what that looks like. And, in that situation, do we stop showing the message? Do we make it persistent until they update? And then how do we, what if for technical limitations, it isn't possible yet on Drupal.org before we deploy this, or before we commit this, to make the message go away when the site is on a particular release? Then you'd have this persistent red fixture of warning that, that you may have already taken steps to resolve. I think the user would expect the message to go away after they've done the update that's supposed to replace it. And I'm not sure how to solve that. And I'm leaning toward maybe we need to make Drupal.org have a setting in the feed related to what releases fix the problem on the SA, so that there's a way for sites to know, okay, this showed up in my feed, but I can stop paying attention to it on these dates. Or whether we need, the way RSS feeds work, once it's out there, it's not like you can change the data in it. They don't pick up edits really well. And it's not like if we go and make a change on Drupal.org afterwards saying, oh, okay, now these releases have been out, and here's the reasons that fix them. It's not like we could fix that here. So
So-
that's one concern that I have.
So Jess, if we have a message and we know, so one of the pieces of information we have is we know the date, I think, of the announcement, and then we also know what projects it's for. In a case like this, could we like reasonably say like there won't be another release of Drupal core between when we have this announcement and when the security release is made? Like if there is another release, say for Drupal 8, can we be assured that it is the security release one?
Well, but I mean, keep in mind that we're tracking across, 6 different branches, 5 or 6 different branches, right? So, this, and we don't know for right now that we could have a security release that's only for Drupal 9.1, for example. Maybe we did some dumbass thing by mistake when we were developing 9.1 and opened up a huge security hole. Or it could affect every release of Drupal going back to Drupal 7, and some sites will get the update if they're already have security coverage under our policy, but some sites won't get the update because we didn't make an update for them because they're on 8.7 and we only gave them security updates. If it were this month, we would make them 8.8, 11, 8.9, 8.8, 10.9.08, etc. But there wouldn't necessarily be a security update on their site if they were already running one of the old insecure minors. And it's also even possible, say this were the first security release created after we stopped supporting a minor, it's even possible that they wouldn't know that their site was on an insecure release until after the update is published. So like where we would know, I mean, and we would, I guess the update manager does include the logic already to check for insecure version. Well, that's something we were talking before. Like it'll only tell you the update is a critical security update if your current one has been marked insecure, I think. So I guess we do handle that. Maybe we can rely on that. But does the patch already do that?
No.
Yeah.
So right now, what the feed gives us is like the currently insecure versions of the project. So, or the currently known, like published insecure versions. So obviously, if there's a security release, we're not telling people, which versions ahead of time are going to be affected. But
I mean, we sometimes we might say critical security release would be published on Wednesday. It affects Drupal 9 only. We might say that, right?
Yeah.
In which case, like, I don't think that, it's we would only do we only, that would be in the words of the essay, right? So ideally, you'd only see it on Drupal 9 sites, but I don't think that there's a way to prevent it from being shown to Drupal 8 and 7 sites as well. Or we might say it's on all branches or whatever, but.
Look at the update and documentation for this.
So can we back up a bit? I'm not quite sure what problem you're currently discussing. Is it the question of when does this message go away? Or is it the question of how do we continue to notify people if the security update has been released and they still haven't upgraded?
I think it's in a way that's both. The second question is, I mean, they will still, if there's a security update out and they still haven't applied it, there's a message that some of them have been ignoring every month for years on their site that says your site is on an insecure version update, right?
Right.
So my understanding from when I talked to Neil Drum about this is that these messages will only be in the feed for like a week. So or that's what that his understanding was, you put this out 48 hours ahead of time, and that message is in the feed. It will show on Drupal, or right now it shows on the contrib module, say, and then a week goes by and they'll reset the feed to not have the announcements anymore.
Okay, so
So-
we're basing it on upstream rather than the circumstances of the site, that the message would just fleet away, even though we hope that they've applied the update within the week, but they haven't necessarily.
Yeah, so if it goes away, then they would have the message that there's an available update.
But if they have their update checking set to monthly,
yeah,
then the message would disappear quietly after a week. They would have no information, and their site might get hacked before the update module runs in.
they can actually only set it weekly.
Oh, daily or weekly. Okay, I see. Okay, for some reason I thought it said monthly.
So there could be a gap of a couple days if there's some sort of weird overlap. If there's no. Yeah, there could be a gap still. If it goes away and they've just checked right before. No, if it's a week, if we say it stays a week after this message stays a week after the release, then we're pretty much guaranteed that they will check for the new update at that point. I mean, I guess one possible solution would be to change how available updates work because right now there's just a security. It just says there's a security release for Drupal core, right? So if this is something that they, like you said, people just ignore, maybe if we could have something. Actually, I don't know if there's anything in the update feed right now that would tell us this is a critical one, that maybe for like, if you have a critical update that you haven't applied, it should be a different message. That way, if this message goes away, then we still have something that's really elevated to say, this is not just the regular security message you're ignoring. I don't know. But I think to some extent, if they have it for a week, I don't know.
And it's sticky on every admin page.
Yeah.
And they've gotten an email. But then again, the emails are good at ignoring. So emails, can we go back to the email text a second?
Yep.
I had some thoughts here and questions here too. So one thing of note is that there will almost never be 5 of them. This is a theoretically possible demo, it's really only going to be one of the messages.
Mm-hmm.
And a few links at the bottom. People do better with the email, I would think, if it's shorter, if there's less to read. The question is, like, can we look at this text? Is there anything that we need to remove from the text to try to make it more digestible? Ted, could you just like delete the extra, 5 announcements or whatever for?
Oh, yeah. That's kind of what it would look like.
So the first concern I have here is with lines 4, 5, and 6. We're hard coding that a security update will be made soon for the Drupal site. That's not the 100% use case of SAs. Sometimes the SAs are, here's a thing that we can't fix, right? And that's my other concern about this. So, we haven't really gotten into the situation of like what would, if it was a situation, if it were something that we couldn't fix with the Drupal update, would that sentence confuse people? Would the messages going away after a week be a problem? Would we need to handle those differently somehow? And then the other question is, can people read, digest, and understand this text? And will it, I'm sure some of us have Drupal sites and get the regular email reminders about updates that we ignore. Is there anything that we can do to sort of mitigate the risk of people just glazing over at the extra email notification?
So in your case, in the case you just mentioned where it's not available, it's not something you can fix with an update. It's something else you need to address, like some sort of configuration. In that case, we probably want to change the wording because at that point they need to take an action right now, right?
Right. And the SA would tell them whether that action needs to be taken right now or not, but it does make this email wrong, the words wrong in the email.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would make the text about the announcement, like an important security announcement is available for your Drupal site. To ensure the security of the site, you should read the announcement immediately. And then the announcement is where the information is that they need to do the update.
Important announcement is available. That you should read the announcement immediately.
And follow its instructions. It's with no apostrophe.
So, so the feed has this setting that says is PSA or not. My understanding was that would be the difference. Like the PSA is coming for an update and the SA is not.
But a PSA could also be like this is a PSA. It doesn't always only say there might be an update. A public service announcement is any announcement that the security team puts out, and in the case of this feed, it's any announcement that the security team puts out that they decide is important enough to have Neil Drum manually run a command on production to put the message in the feed. It could be something like highly critical issue in the devel module, delete it from your code base, right? Like it could be.
But what's the difference here in this feed? Like we have this setting for this thing. What does this tell us? If that's not.
It's a PSA. I mean, of course it's a PSA, but public service.
But this could actually be, this could be 0 in the feed.
Is that because the essays are in the same feed?
They could be, yeah.
Because so when we go to create an essay, there's a radio box that says is PSA, and you select no, it defaults to no if it's a normal essay that's an advisory for vulnerability, and you select PSA to make it a security announcement with different fields that goes in a different feed. So I think that's just a reflection of the metadata that's already existing in the Drupal.org metadata for stuff.
Yeah, but you could have, right now, the way it's written, you could have an item in here where that wasn't checked, where the field was.
Right, but I don't think that's relevant. I'm talking about two kinds of things that are both PSAs. I'm talking about two kinds of critical information that we would want to push out to Drupal sites that are both public service announcements and would both be on the public service announcement page, and that we might want to, under some circumstance, push out to sites where there's a security issue with a module or theme that just running an update isn't going to fix. Do you follow?
Okay, yeah, but I'm just saying that there will be things in the feed that we will show on the Drupal core, right, on with the way the patch is now, that where this is 0, so it's been labeled as not a PSA.
Right, but both of the things I'm talking about are kinds of PSAs. It's just that one describes a future update and one describes an action to take now.
So both are PSAs. One explicitly says it's not a PSA, though.
What are you talking about?
So this would be 0.
No, this wouldn't be 0 because you're confused. What I'm describing are both public service announcements that we would deliberate. This is a hypothetical situation where we've added a public service announcement to Drupal.org, and furthermore, run the command to add it to this feed. One message is a public service announcement about an upcoming update. The other message is a public service announcement that says you need to change all the views on your site because of permissions problem, or you need to make sure to manually remove PHP unit from your code base.
Okay, well, that's not how the drush command is written right now. The drush command is written as it doesn't have to have, you could add via that drush command to this feed something that's labeled as not a PSA.
But I don't understand what you think that, but both of the things I like is not something that is not a PSA means something different. I'm just describing two types of things that are both still use public service announcements, right? There's a third kind of thing that's not a PSA, that are the essay advisories, but they're a thing but neither of the thing I'm talking about is those, right? So there's something that value means when it's removed, but it doesn't mean either of the two scenarios I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that the wording covers both cases, and I'm wondering what we do from a usability standpoint in the situation where the PSA is an action that they need to take now, and all that.
So there's nothing, is there anything when you make one for the security team that would tell you that?
Well, see, this is what I was talking about. Here, can I take over screen sharing for a second?
Sure.
I want folks to actually see what this looks like on the Drupal.org side for the security team. Cool. Drupal.org/security. Here we go. So where the public service announcements are located on s.d.o is this public service announcements tab. You notice there are, so not all of these PSAs will automatically become available in the feed to Drupal.org. What has to happen in order for something to be in the feed that Ted has been talking about that actually pushes the announcements down to site is that Neil takes the node ID of one of them and runs a drush command locally on production on Drupal.org, and it adds it to the special field. However, this is the edit tab for the security team's content on Drupal.org. You see this, it says, is PSA, no or yes. It has an advisory ID, vulnerability, project, security risk reported by, all that other stuff. So this is on the edit tab for the most recent PSA, which is not one we would run a command after this to put it on the feed if it were critical. This isn't. All this is an announcement that's going to stay only on Drupal.org about ending Drupal 7's end of life. Now, in another tab, we're going to take a look at the last core security advisory. Moderately critical information disclosure, SA Core 2020-11. This field, I'm circling around it. Can you see me circling around it? All this field does is indicate whether the announcement type is a security advisory for a module or any old public service announcement on this feed. That's all that piece of metadata is indicating. It's differentiating a PSA on the third tab from a security advisory on the first or second tab for core Drupal. So it has nothing to do with our modules functionality. It has nothing to do.
Both of those can get into the feed the way it's written now.
Right. And it's just all that means is it's just one content type on Drupal.org. So we should assume that theoretically anything that has this node type, the node type that's used for essays and PSAs, could theoretically end up in the feed. I'm assuming that we would only run the command, and it's a manual step to put stuff in the actual feed. So for example, you can see a lot of these things, various third-party vulnerabilities. I'm trying to think of an example. So like, for example, here's another example of one that would be, you remember, if all you remember, a couple of years ago, we had that vulnerability where no one hacked it for 2 weeks. It was like people call it Drupal get into or stupid stuff like that, because which didn't have anything to do with the first one. And then once people started exploiting in the wild, we put out an additional PSA to notice site owners that there was an increased risk and an additional exploit path and stuff like that. And then again, this is just the one content type with that is PSA yes or no item. And maybe we would run this command, maybe we'll put this in the feed because this is a highly critical announcement and we want it to show up on Drupal sites, right? It's important to know if you have not yet updated to Drupal 8.6.10 as of this date, you're even worse off than we originally said you would be 2 weeks ago, for example. We had to increase the risk score. And so this is a situation back in 2019 when we theoretically might have said, oh, for God's sakes, let's send this PSA to the feed too. But it will always, all that is PSA means is whether it's a security advisory of the piece of content type on Drupal.org that makes those two things versus whether it's a public service announcement category type thing. They have all the same fields otherwise. And it's just one content type. So that's the only thing that Boolean is from. It doesn't actually, it's not something, it doesn't contain other special information about it. Other things that are on the public services announcements feed that we would probably not add to the feed, for example, here on October 17th, we put out an essay that said, we are extending the security window by 3 hours to let people know to check for their updates 3 hours later. We probably, I can't remember the exact circumstances around this. I think that it was just that we were having problems with testing and we had to regenerate a patch by hand. And so it was already 5 p.m. Eastern and we just weren't able to get the release out yet. But it wasn't a highly critical situation in which if the site owner didn't react within a matter of hours, they were probably gonna get hacked. It wasn't that situation. So for this PSA, the difference between this and the other one is that all we would do is just not run that command on Drupal.org to put it in the super special break glass feed. It's still a PSA. It just refers to the type of content on Drupal.org.
Yeah, I think we're getting sort of into the weeds here. We have 14 minutes left in the meeting. So presumably what we have to worry about now is what to do if it is in the feed and if it does have the is PSA flag set to true. Is that right?
Right. And so that'll be the case for, I think, both of the two different types of things I was just talking about. One of which is actionable now for at least with sufficient administrative access to the site, and a different kind of PSA that's actionable once a certain release is released. We don't necessarily know what the number of that release is going to be because there could, for some reason, be a bad, we could be in a situation where we create a bad release. However, if the site is on an insecure version, after the date in the PSA has elapsed, it's probably fair to assume that the security team has cleaned it up and they're still affected by it. So I think that we can probably rely on letting the site owner switch over at that point. But the thing is, I don't know if there's, if we need to do, if it's a concern from a usability standpoint to have, a big red message at the top of the screen that the user can't get rid of, even if they've already done the thing to resolve the issue. Bella?
Well, I'm not sure we have enough information to avoid leaving the message up even when the situation has been resolved. It is only for a few days in any event, right?
My
And we,
understanding
we
is
all we
it could
also
be a
don't
week.
have enough information in the feed to say what type of action is required, whether it's update a module, update core, or delete all the fields from your site. We don't have that information, so all we can do is update the text to be as generic and honest as complete as we can without overwhelming people with a wall of text, right?
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
Ted, can you show us the draft email you're editing again?
Yep.
Because I wondered, is it really necessary to include that paragraph at the bottom about how to change the configuration option?
Um, um,
I mean, as Jess said, the less text we ask them to,
yeah.
the less text we present them with, the better. And I'm not sure that we really need this in the announcements for the PSAs. They will
Yeah.
still get that text for the regular security announcements.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say not, because
And I think that's a paragraph that we probably inherited from the update status report draft. I don't think that Ted wrote that on his own.
this is from the contrib module original. I mean, I don't know where they got it.
Was it? Let me check and see.
No, they probably borrowed it from the regular announcement that there's a security release coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
here's,
a
I'm going to put in Slack now what my emails say when I get a, so this is when my site is already insecure. I'm running an old release and it's telling me to update to a new release. So to get notified only for security updates, I have an option there to configure it. And they probably have a similar paragraph like this that is like to notify for additional kinds of updates, configure them here.
Yeah,
That's
so
what that's from.
yeah, I would say we don't need this paragraph.
And you know, maybe that is this something that we would try to change for all three of them, for that matter, as like a separate follow-up issue, just to get rid of that paragraph and discuss the implications of it and stuff.
So
Yeah.
are you saying that you don't want to remove it for these emails as part of this issue? You'd rather postpone that to a follow-up?
Yeah, and actually, Ted and I have discussed about whether we should split up the scope between sending the emails and making the UI changes into separate issues anyway. But yeah, I think that we can't make a decision about the other two kinds of emails in this issue because it's out of scope. We might want to make a decision about all three issues that the paragraph should be removed to make less text. But obviously, those three paragraphs that I just linked to you, in that email, it's a lot less than an information that it is here.
I also have a question about the notifications that appear at the top of every page. Are they translatable? The part that comes from the JSON feed? Like
The
is the JSON feed translated?
Yeah, the JSON feed isn't, but the one urgent announcement part is using format plural, or whatever we call its format plural modern day replacement.
Right.
Yeah, the title of the item we can't actually translate. I mean, Drupal could implement something that gave you the message in multiple languages, but right now it doesn't.
Which would require translators to be available to write sensitive security text. So I don't think that we actually have the capacity to do that. So it would be displaying a link in English even on non-English sites, but only to administrators.
But I mean, they would have to be able to, I mean, even if we translated the title, the actual announcement wouldn't be translated right now. So it wouldn't really help them that much.
Right. The title is just the title of the announcement. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's a question of, is the, like, I guess in this case where it says one urgent announcement requires your attention, presumably that was in your language, and then this title is not in your language. You would at least know this is critical, something urgent that you should figure out how to address. But I wonder about this, the second message where it just says public service announcements. That doesn't say anything about urgent or critical. So maybe if this was in your language, but the title wasn't, and you didn't speak English, or you had no idea what it meant, is this public service announcements critical enough to make you not want to ignore it?
Well, for one thing, I think we definitely need the word security there.
Okay.
And in the text, maybe, instead of, maybe it should be urgent security announcement or something.
Yeah.
Right, because public service announcement to the general public means things like say no to drugs.
Right, exactly. even if they are fluent English speakers, it's still not conveying the right level of
Urgent security announcement. All right, that makes sense. So should we change this to say one urgent security announcement requires your attention?
well, if we already have the information would already be over at left, right? So then I would just be repeating it.
So we're changing this to urgent security announcements in both places. Here
Yeah, I
and here.
think it would make sense too, so that the user knows that these are related to the same. These aren't two different separate red alerts on their site. They should have the same wording. Because yeah, the urgent security announcement could say, we've got an upcoming release on Wednesday. Be ready to update immediately. Or it could say, some sites may have this module in their code base. We can't detect it. It's vulnerable to RPCE being exploited in the wild. Please immediately check your code base and remove it, or something like that. Like both are hypothetical use cases for this functionality.
Okay.
And right now not distinguishable in the metadata, but that wording will cover both of them.
So what did we land on with the email? Did we land on we want to remove this paragraph in this issue and then follow up for the other ones to remove it? Or to see if we want to remove it?
So can you make a copy of it that has just the new text so that we can see how long it is? Because this has both the new and old. So let's see
So
the
we
first
get rid of
paragraph.
this, right?
Yeah, we'd be just deleting that. And then we'd be deleting that. And is the first line the subject of the email?
Yeah. Yeah, shorter.
It's still a lot more words than the other one, but.
Is there any additional information on the status report page?
I don't think there is, no. So I would delete that too.
There's not. Oh, there's not. Oh, yes. For more information. Yeah, there's not.
Yep, because all the page tells you is the same thing and the same link. And then we do tell them where to find all reports in the PSA, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried that people are just going to think this is spam. Yeah, something's wrong with your Drupal site. I guess people are used to getting the available updates message, so.
Right. But the fact that the link points to Drupal.org, at least, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, if you saw the subject, right, and didn't see the email.
I mean, it's unlikely to ever be 4, so it'll probably be one security announcement requires your attention.
Yeah, but probably can.
And it'd be announcement singular and requires.
Yeah.
But the plural translation will take care of the difference.
Yeah, it's shorter. I think it's good.
Yeah, I agree. That's better.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Ted, what was the reason for including the last screenshot?
Just to show that it's on multiple pages. And this would, so.
Oh, I see. It's part of the PSA being on top of that page. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and also like for available updates, it won't actually show on this page because you're on the available updates page. So this would show, since there's not a page besides the status report page that would show the same thing, that's the only place it will not show.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, we're at time. I have to
Okay.
drop off. I
right,
can leave
thanks.
the meeting open if you'd like to go a little longer. But for the sake of the recording, I also want to mention that obviously Jess joined us. She's been active in the discussion, XJM, and also BL Hamilton. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so I'll update the screenshots I'll update the patch, update the screenshots, put an email screenshot in there or text, and I'll just post a comment on the UX channel when that's done.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.